I never imagined a locked door could swallow someone whole, leaving behind nothing but an echo and a guilt that would haunt my every waking moment. My name is David Miller, and barely 6 months ago, my world was all about climbing the corporate ladder, polishing my resume, and making a name for myself. I'd landed the coveted position of estate manager at Sterling Manor, a sprawling Gilded Age behemoth perched on a bluff overlooking the Atlantic in Newport, Rhode Island. Mr. Alistair Sterling, a reclusive tech billionaire, rarely made an appearance, preferring to communicate through terse emails and the occasional, unsettlingly precise phone call. My job was to ensure the vast property, from its manicured lawns to its countless dust-shrouded rooms, ran like a Swiss watch. The salary was astronomical, the perks beyond anything I'd ever dreamed of, and the opportunity to add managed Sterling Manor to my CV felt like a golden ticket to the upper echelons of luxury management. The manor itself was a monument to a bygone era, all dark wood, intricate tapestries, and enough marble to build a small cathedral. Every morning I'd stroll through its cavernous halls, checking on the staff, the gardeners, the chefs, the housekeepers, a small army dedicated to maintaining this ghost of grandeur. It was during one of these routine rounds, about a month after I started, that Sarah Jensen joined the cleaning crew. She was young, maybe 24, with bright, curious eyes that seemed too vibrant for the muted elegance of the manor. She'd graduated from Rhode Island College with a degree in something creative, art history perhaps, and was just trying to make ends meet, saving up for graduate school in Boston. She talked about visiting the Museum of Fine Arts, about weekend trips to Nantucket with friends, about a future far grander than pushing a vacuum across antique rugs. I liked her. She was a refreshing burst of normalcy in a place that often felt like a carefully preserved museum exhibit rather than a home. One crisp October morning, just after the leaves had turned their fiery hues, Sarah approached me, her brow furrowed. "Mr. Miller," she began, her voice a low murmur. "I was cleaning the West Wing, the one Mr. Sterling supposedly never uses." I nodded, already bracing myself. The West Wing was a labyrinth of forgotten bedrooms and dusty drawing rooms, sealed off for decades. Well, I found a door. Not just any door, but a heavy oak one, with a massive old-fashioned padlock on it. "It's not on any of the blueprints I was given, and the housekeeper said it's always been there, just ignored." She looked at me, her curiosity palpable. "Do you know what's in there?" I brushed her off, a practiced, dismissive smile on my face. "Sarah, you know Mr. Sterling is a private man. His eccentricities are part of the package. That wing, that room, it's all part of the manor's history, best left untouched. Focus on your assigned tasks, all right? We don't want to overstep." My priority was keeping Mr. Sterling happy, and his privacy was paramount. I remembered the meticulous contract I'd signed, the clauses about discretion, about respecting the owner's unspoken rules. My career was on the line, and a curious cleaner poking around forgotten rooms was a liability I couldn't afford. I saw the flash of disappointment in her eyes, but she just nodded, dutifully. "Yes, Mr. Miller. Understood." I watched her walk away, a faint unease settling in my gut, but I quickly suppressed it. It was just a locked door. What harm could it do? 3 days later, Sarah Jensen vanished. It began subtly, with her not showing up for her morning shift. The head housekeeper, Mrs. Gable, a woman who ran her team with military precision, first brought it to my attention. "Sarah's not here, Mr. Miller. No call, no text. Highly uncharacteristic." I shrugged, annoyed. "Maybe she's sick, Mrs. Gable. Give her a call." But Sarah's phone went straight to voicemail. Her small apartment in downtown Newport was empty, her car still parked in its usual spot. Her friends hadn't seen her since she left work 3 days prior. My initial reaction was a surge of irritation, mixed with a growing knot of dread. This couldn't be happening, not on my watch. My perfect, pristine record, my flawless management of Sterling Manor was about to be tarnished. My first thought wasn't for Sarah, but for the potential scandal, the disruption to my carefully constructed career path. The shame of that thought still burns. I tried calling her again, then her emergency contact, an aunt in Providence. Nothing. A cold, hard certainty began to set in. Sarah hadn't just not shown up. She was gone. The locked door in the West Wing flashed into my mind, a dark, ominous shadow. Could it be connected? No. I quickly dismissed the thought. That was just a coincidence. People run away. People get into accidents. This was surely just a personal matter, nothing to do with the manor, right? My immediate gut-wrenching decision was to keep it quiet. Panic had a way of seizing rational thought, twisting it into self-preservation. I told Mrs. Gable to tell the other staff Sarah was on an unexpected leave, a family emergency. I told myself I was protecting Mr. Sterling's privacy, but the truth was, I was protecting myself. I imagined the headlines, the police cars, the media circus descending upon Sterling Manor. My ambition, a relentless beast, clawed at me, whispering that this was a test of my discretion, my ability to handle sensitive situations without involving the outside world. I initiated my own search, discreetly questioning staff, checking security footage from the gate, which showed Sarah leaving the property 3 days ago, but nothing since her car was still there. No one had seen her re-enter. No one had seen her leave another way. It was as if she'd simply evaporated into the thin air of the Rhode Island coast. The silence of the manor, once a symbol of serene luxury, now felt heavy, suffocating, pregnant with unspoken secrets. I walked past the West Wing again, my gaze lingering on the heavy oak door. It mocked me, solid and unyielding, a silent sentinel guarding a void where a vibrant young woman used to be. The guilt gnawed at me, a tiny worm burrowing into my conscience. I had dismissed her curiosity. I had prioritized my career over her intuition. And now she was gone. The grand facade of Sterling Manor, with its towering columns and sweeping ocean views, began to feel less like a home and more like an elaborate stage for a tragedy. Every creak of the old house, every whisper of the ocean breeze through the ancient trees seemed to carry Sarah's name. I couldn't shake the image of her bright, inquisitive eyes, the way she spoke of art and future dreams. I had dismissed her, hadn't I? Told her to mind her business. Had I, in my blind ambition, inadvertently pushed her towards something dangerous? The thought was a relentless hum beneath my every waking moment, a low-grade fever that wouldn't break. I would walk the halls, inspecting the imported Italian marble, the priceless Flemish tapestries, and all I could see was Sarah's absence. Her cleaning cart stood abandoned in a utility closet, a forlorn collection of sprays and brushes. Her small, utilitarian purse lay forgotten on a bench in the staff lounge, a crumpled receipt from a local coffee shop spilling out. A tiny, almost imperceptible tremor ran through me when I saw it. It was so ordinary, so undeniably hers, yet she hadn't taken it with her. Who leaves their purse behind if they're just going for a walk or even running away? My attempts to locate Sarah discreetly were met with dead ends. Her aunt in Providence, Martha, grew increasingly agitated. She's not one to just vanish, David. She's responsible. She was so excited about that job, about saving up. Martha's voice was laced with a worry that mirrored my own burgeoning fear. I offered vague assurances, citing a personal matter I was looking into, still unwilling to involve the authorities. The idea of police sirens wailing up the winding drive of Sterling Manor, of detectives combing through Mr. Sterling's private domain, sent a cold shiver down my spine. The media would have a field day. Missing cleaner at billionaire's estate. It would be a nightmare. My carefully cultivated image, my ascent, all of it would crumble. Mr. Sterling would be furious. I would be fired, blacklisted. I knew deep down that this self-serving calculation was monstrous, but it felt like the only way to protect my future. even as Sarah's present was evaporating. Mr. Sterling's reclusiveness, once a convenient characteristic, now felt like a sinister veil. He communicated only through encrypted messages, never a direct call. When I cautiously brought up Sarah's absence, phrasing it as a personnel issue, his response was clipped. "Resolve it. Discretion is paramount, Miller. No concern, no curiosity, just an order, a demand for the seamless operation of his gilded cage." It was unsettling. Most employers would express some concern for a missing employee. His complete lack of empathy, his singular focus on his own undisturbed existence, painted a chilling picture. I found myself scrutinizing his every message, searching for hidden meanings, for any hint of complicity. Was he hiding something? Was this locked door more than just a forgotten relic? I started my own clandestine investigation within the manor. I walked the corridors late at night, the silence amplifying the thumping of my own heart. I scoured old staff logs, blueprints, anything that might shed light on the manor's forgotten corners or Mr. Sterling's past. Micro-triggers were everywhere. A flicker of something in Mrs. Gable's eyes when I asked about Sarah's last day, a strange, lingering look from old Thomas, the head gardener, who'd been at the manor for decades. He'd seen things, I was sure of it, but his lips were sealed by years of discretion, perhaps by fear. I found a loose floorboard in a storage room near the west wing, a small detail that might have gone unnoticed by anyone else. Beneath it, tucked away in a dusty old cigar box, was a collection of faded newspaper clippings. My hands trembled as I unfolded the brittle pages. The headlines screamed from decades past. Prominent Newport socialite disappears from grand estate. Search continues for young heiress. Sterling family tragedy. Daughter vanishes. The dates were from 50 years ago exactly. The estate mentioned was Sterling Manor. The missing person, Evelyn Sterling, Mr. Sterling's own younger sister. She was a vivacious young woman, beloved in society circles, known for her rebellious spirit and artistic pursuits. The articles painted a picture of a frantic search, a baffled police force, and a family devastated by loss. No body was ever found, no culprit ever identified. The official conclusion was a presumed drowning in the turbulent Atlantic. But the articles hinted at whispers, rumors of a secret lover, a desperate escape, or something far more sinister within the manor walls. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just a coincidence, this was a pattern. Sarah's disappearance wasn't a random event. It was an echo, a chilling reprise of a tragedy that had haunted this very house for generations. The locked door in the west wing, the one Sarah had discovered, suddenly took on a terrifying new significance. What if it wasn't just a forgotten room, but a place intrinsically linked to Evelyn's disappearance? A place where answers were hidden, and where Sarah, in her innocent curiosity, might have stumbled upon something the Sterling family had kept buried for half a century. The knot of dread in my stomach tightened into a painful, suffocating coil. The revelation of the newspaper clippings shattered my comfortable facade of denial. Sarah hadn't just run away, and this wasn't just a personnel issue. This was history repeating itself, a dark current flowing beneath the polished floors of Sterling Manor. The casual dismissal I'd offered Sarah now felt like a damning indictment. I, David Miller, ambitious and self-absorbed, had told a young woman to ignore her instincts, to ignore a mystery that might have led to her own undoing. My self-preservation instinct, however, was still battling with a growing sense of responsibility. I was an employee, bound by contract. What would Mr. Sterling do if I dug up old family secrets? But what kind of man would I be if I didn't? My initial false exit strategy, the belief that Sarah had simply taken off, was crumbling. The more I reviewed the security footage, the more unsettling details emerged. Sarah's car was indeed still there, parked exactly where she always left it. Her keys were still in her purse in the staff lounge. She wasn't just gone. She had vanished from inside the manor, Or at least, after leaving her car and belongings here. The only thing she had on her person was her cell phone, which was now dead, its last known location pinging near the manor grounds days ago. I tried to convince myself that she had a secret rendezvous, that she'd planned to be picked up, but the clippings, Evelyn Sterling's story, screamed a different truth. My obsession with the locked door in the West Wing intensified. It was no longer just a locked door, it was a portal to the past, a potential tomb. I returned to the West Wing, my heart thumping a frantic rhythm against my ribs. The corridor was cold, the air thick with the smell of dust and disuse. The heavy oak door loomed, dark and unyielding. The old-fashioned padlock, tarnished with age, seemed impenetrable. I tried to pick it, fumbling with paper clips and then specialized tools I ordered online, but it held fast. I considered breaking it, but the noise would alert the few staff members still on the property. No, I needed a subtler approach. I spent hours poring over the manor's original blueprints, comparing them to the current layout. There was a discrepancy. A small, unlabeled room, barely a closet, situated directly behind the locked room and accessible from a forgotten service stairwell. It was marked only with a faint X on a crumbling century-old drawing. It was so small, so insignificant, that modern renovations had likely just walled it off, assuming it was empty. This was my shot. This was my entry point. I felt a surge of adrenaline, cold and exhilarating. I waited until the dead of night, the manor silent, save for the mournful howl of the wind off the ocean. Armed with a flashlight and a crowbar, I slipped into the service stairwell. The air was frigid, the steps creaking beneath my weight. I found the small, unmarked door, obscured by decades of paint and plaster. It wasn't locked, merely painted over. With a grunt, I forced it open. The space inside was indeed tiny, barely enough room to stand. It smelled of damp earth and decay, but on the far wall I could see it. A seam, a hairline crack in the plaster. Behind it, a thin wooden panel. This wasn't a closet. It was a hidden passage. This was one of the extra narrative blocks, something unexpected, something that breaks the linear flow and deepens the mystery. With renewed vigor, I set to work. The crowbar groaned, the wood splintered, and with a final desperate heave, the panel gave way. Beyond it lay not a closet, but a narrow, dusty corridor, barely wide enough for one person. It led directly to the back of the locked room. This wasn't a way into the locked room, but rather a way around it, a secret passage that mirrored the room's hidden nature. My flashlight beam cut through the oppressive darkness, illuminating another, smaller door, made of rough-hewn timber within the passage itself. It was unlocked. I pushed it open. The room beyond was not what I expected. Not a dungeon, not a prison cell, but a meticulously preserved child's room. A faded wallpaper of whimsical hot air balloons, a small four-poster bed draped in white lace, a miniature rocking horse in the corner, a dusty collection of porcelain dolls staring blankly from a shelf. It was like stepping into a time capsule, a poignant memorial. A large, ornate wooden chest sat at the foot of the bed. My heart ached with an unfamiliar pang of sorrow. This was Evelyn's room, her private sanctuary, preserved as she had left it. Mr. Sterling hadn't just ignored it, he had guarded it, kept it frozen in time. As my eyes adjusted to the dim light, I saw a small, hastily scribbled note on the nightstand, tucked beneath a worn copy of Alice in Wonderland. My breath hitched. It wasn't old. It was recent. Sarah's handwriting. He said he loved her. He said she ran away. But the diary tells a different story. I have to find out what happened. My gaze swept the room, frantic. Where was the diary? I searched the small desk, the bookshelf, under the pillows. Nothing. Then my eyes caught something unusual near the window. A small, almost invisible indentation in the thick dust on the windowsill, as if something had been placed there, then quickly removed. And then I saw it, gleaming faintly in the beam of my flashlight, a tiny silver locket, barely larger than my thumbnail, nestled in a gap in the floorboards. It was Sarah's. It had been opened, and inside was a miniature, faded photograph. A young woman, strikingly beautiful, with a mischievous smile. Evelyn Sterling. And beside her, a younger, much younger Alistair Sterling, his arm around her. The true secret wasn't the room itself, but what Sarah had found within it and what she was trying to uncover. She wasn't just curious, she had found a clue. And the truth, I realized, was far more complex and far more tragic than I could have ever imagined. The roles were truly reversing. Mr. Sterling wasn't a villain, but a man haunted by grief and a desperate need to protect a painful secret. And Sarah, in her youthful idealism, had become entangled in its web. The child's room, a relic of a bygone era, wasn't a sinister prison, but a meticulously preserved mausoleum of memory. Evelyn Sterling's sanctuary, untouched for 5 decades, the faded wallpaper, the porcelain dolls, the small rocking horse. Each detail spoke of a life abruptly halted. But Sarah's note and her locket shattered any illusion of mere sentimentality. He said he loved her. He said she ran away. But the diary tells a different story. I have to find out what happened. The words echoed in my head, a chilling accusation. Mr. Sterling wasn't just a reclusive billionaire. He was a keeper of secrets, a guardian of a narrative he wanted to control. And Sarah had stumbled upon the truth. My guilt, once a dull ache, sharpened into a searing pain. My ambition, which had once felt like a noble pursuit, now seemed a grotesque monster, blinding me to the real human stakes involved. I had dismissed Sarah, a young woman full of life and dreams, for the sake of my career. I had implicitly encouraged her to step away from the truth, and yet her own sense of justice, her intrinsic curiosity, had pulled her deeper into the very danger I had tried to ignore. The truth, I realized, was not just about Evelyn Sterling, but about Mr. Sterling himself, and by extension, about my own complicity. I found the diary where Sarah must have left it, tucked carefully beneath the mattress of the child's bed, away from casual sight. It was a small, leather-bound volume, its pages yellowed with age, filled with elegant looping script, Evelyn Sterling's journal. I sank onto the floor, my back against the wall, and began to read. The entries were a vibrant tapestry of a young woman's life in the 1970s, secret crushes, aspirations for art school in Paris, frustrations with her stifling socialite existence, and her deep, complicated affection for her older brother Alistair. But then the tone shifted. Subtle hints of discord, of a burgeoning love affair her family disapproved of, particularly Alistair. His protectiveness, once a comfort, had become suffocating. The entries grew more desperate, more fearful. She wrote of feeling trapped, of a plan to elope, to escape the gilded cage. Then a final entry, scrawled hastily, almost illegibly. He knows. He cornered me. Not Dad, not Mom, Alistair. He won't let me go. He thinks he's protecting me, but he's destroying me. I heard him talking to Father. I can't believe it. I have to hide this. If anything happens to me, tell the truth. Tell them what Alistair did. He trapped me. He loves me too much to let me be free. He locked me in the boathouse, said it was for my own good to think things over. He won't let me leave. Oh God, the storm is coming. The waves are so loud. Tell the world what he did. The entry abruptly ended. The pieces clicked into place with horrifying clarity. Evelyn hadn't just disappeared. She had been imprisoned, perhaps inadvertently, by her own brother, in an act of misguided, possessive love. And then the storm. The news reports had mentioned a fierce nor'easter that struck the coast that very week, causing immense damage. The boathouse, perched precariously at the edge of the cliff, must have been swallowed by the raging sea. Alistair, blinded by his overprotective love, had inadvertently caused his sister's death. This was the third turn, the true secret, not a kidnapping or a murder, but a tragedy born of possessive love and a desperate attempt to control. The wealthy family had then covered it up, burying the truth under a veneer of accidental drowning, preserving Evelyn's room as a shrine to a guilt-ridden lie. And Sarah, in her determined search for truth, had discovered it. She had held the diary in her hands. She knew. My blood ran cold. Mr. Sterling wasn't a killer, not in the traditional sense, but he was responsible for his sister's death and for the 50 years of lies that followed. And now he had Sarah. My mind reeled. If he knew Sarah had found the diary, what lengths would he go to keep that truth buried? The manor, once a symbol of my aspirations, now felt like a tomb. I suddenly understood the crushing weight of Sterling's reclusiveness, his chilling detachment. He wasn't just an eccentric billionaire, he was a man consumed by a half-century of guilt, living in a self-made prison of his own making, haunted by the ghost of his sister. I clutched the diary, my hands shaking. My first instinct, the one driven by my old ambition, was to keep quiet, to erase my involvement, to preserve my job. But the image of Sarah's bright eyes, her eager curiosity, her passion for truth, flashed before me. She was just like Evelyn, vibrant and yearning for freedom. I had to do something. I had to right this decades-old wrong, and I had to find Sarah. What if it were you, trapped in a lie, a secret suffocating for 50 years? Would you have the courage to expose it, even if it meant destroying your entire world? The question burned in my mind. A challenge. My career, my future, my comfortable life. All of it suddenly seemed utterly meaningless compared to the crushing weight of this truth. I knew then, with a sickening certainty, that I couldn't be like Mr. Sterling, a man living a gilded lie. I had to choose. I had to make the emotional choice, not the logical one. I had to choose conscience over convenience, justice over ambition. The truth of Evelyn's diary was a wildfire in my mind, consuming all my old ambitions, turning my carefully constructed world to ash. Mr. Sterling, the reclusive billionaire, was not merely guarding a secret. He was imprisoned by it, a captive of his own tragic past and the desperate lengths he'd gone to conceal it. His sister's memory, once a symbol of his grief, was now a monument to his guilt. And Sarah, with her vibrant curiosity, had unwittingly stumbled into this monument, threatening to expose the very foundations of his existence. My own fault, the fourth turn, stared me down with unwavering intensity. My dismissal of Sarah, my prioritization of corporate discretion over genuine human concern, my blind ambition to climb the ladder of wealth and influence, it had all contributed to this moment. I'd been so focused on the superficial gloss of Sterling Manor that I hadn't seen the rotting core beneath. I had let a young woman walk into danger, a danger I had dismissed, ignored even, in my eagerness to please my powerful employer. The realization hit me like a physical blow. I was no better than Alistair Sterling, sacrificing truth and human connection for a perceived sense of order and control. I couldn't live with it. The diary clutched in my hand felt heavy, a moral compass pointing irrevocably towards justice. My comfortable, high-paying job, the beautiful mansion, the illusion of success, it all dissolved into insignificance. There was only Sarah somewhere, caught in the wake of Sterling's half-century-old lie. And there was Evelyn, a voice crying out from the past, demanding to be heard. I confronted Mr. Sterling the next morning. The sun was streaming through the immense windows of his study, illuminating motes of dust dancing in the air, creating a strangely peaceful tableau for what was about to unfold. He sat behind his imposing mahogany desk, a fortress of wealth and power, sipping his usual unsweetened black coffee. He looked frail, older than his 75 years, his eyes shadowed with an ancient sadness. "Mr. Sterling," I began, my voice surprisingly steady, despite the tremor in my hands. I placed Evelyn's diary gently on his desk, sliding it across the polished surface. I found this, and I know about Evelyn." His hand, holding the delicate china cup, froze mid-air. The colour drained from his face, leaving it ashen. For a long moment he said nothing, his gaze fixed on the leather-bound book as if it were a venomous snake. Then, slowly, he set the cup down, a faint clinking sound, the only noise in the vast room. He looked at me, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes, fear, resignation, perhaps even a glimmer of relief. "You weren't supposed to find that, Miller," he said, his voice a raspy whisper. "No one was. It was buried, like everything else." I pushed on, the words tumbling out, fueled by a righteous anger I hadn't known I possessed. "Sarah Jensen found it. She read it. She wanted to know the truth. Where is she, Mr. Sterling? What have you done?" He closed his eyes, a deep, shuddering sigh escaping him. "She came to me after she found the diary. She was so insistent, so like Evelyn. She wanted to expose it all, to right the wrong." He opened his eyes and they were filled with a profound weariness. "I couldn't let her, not after all these years, not after I've spent a lifetime building this empire to honor Evelyn's memory, to make up for my mistake. If the truth came out, everything would crumble. My reputation, my legacy, the family name. I couldn't bear it." He looked at me, a desperate plea in his eyes. "Have you also lost someone to your own pride, Mr. Miller, to a decision you made that you couldn't take back?" The question hung in the air, piercing my own defenses. Yes, I had. I had lost Sarah, perhaps irrevocably, to my own pride, my own ambition. My complicity, though different in scale, felt just as profound. I hadn't pushed her into the ocean, but I had pushed her towards the secret that might have drowned her. "Where is she, Mr. Sterling?" I repeated, my voice rising in urgency. "Tell me now." He hesitated, then slowly, deliberately, reached into a hidden compartment in his desk. He pulled out a small, antique silver key. "She's safe, for now. I couldn't hurt her. She reminded me too much of Evelyn, of her spirit. I just needed time to think, time to convince her to keep silent." He handed me the key. "The old carriage house, down by the east gate. There's a hidden room beneath it. It's soundproofed. She's been there for 3 days. I haven't harmed her, Miller, I swear. Just kept her out of sight. I bring her food, water, a blanket. She's comfortable, just contained." My blood ran cold again. Contained. That was the word he used. The same way he had contained Evelyn in the boathouse years ago. The chill of his calculated, desperate action sent a fresh wave of terror through me. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat of dread and determination. I didn't wait for another word. I grabbed the key, turned and ran. The diary still clutched in my other hand, a symbol of the truth I was now fiercely committed to revealing. The consequences to Sterling Manor, to Mr. Sterling, to my own future, they no longer mattered. Only Sarah. The old carriage house, rarely used except for storing antique garden equipment, stood a little apart from the main manor, closer to the east gate. I burst through its creaking main doors, the scent of hay and forgotten leather filling my nostrils. My eyes scanned the interior, searching for any sign of a hidden entrance. A faint light, almost imperceptible, flickered from beneath a stack of old tarpaulins in the far corner. My heart leapt into my throat. I tore away the covers, revealing a set of narrow wooden steps descending into darkness. The air grew heavy as I descended, a damp, earthy smell replacing the mustiness of the carriage house. At the bottom, a heavy oak door, similar in construction to the one in the west wing, loomed before me. My hands shook as I inserted the silver key, turning it with a decisive click. The lock groaned open. I pushed the door inward, and the faint light from above illuminated a small, windowless room. Sarah was there. She sat curled in a corner, wrapped in a thick wool blanket, her eyes wide with fear, but also a fierce, unwavering defiance. Her face was pale, smudged with dirt, her hair disheveled. She looked gaunt, but alive. A half-eaten sandwich and a bottle of water lay beside her. She flinched as the door opened, her eyes narrowing as she recognized me. "David?" Her voice was hoarse, barely a whisper. You came. I rushed to her side, dropping to my knees. Sarah, I'm so sorry. I should have listened. I should have acted sooner. The words poured out, raw and unburdened by my usual professionalism. My carefully constructed image had shattered, and in its place was only profound regret and an overwhelming sense of urgency. He tried to make me promise, David, she said, her voice stronger now, to forget what I read, to accept his story. He said he'd pay me, give me anything I wanted, but I couldn't, not after Evelyn. Her words, they cried out from the pages. She gestured to the diary I still held. The truth needed to be told. The weight of the situation settled upon me like a physical burden. Here was Sarah, alive but traumatized. Here was the diary, the undeniable proof of a half-century-old injustice. And upstairs, in his gilded cage, was Mr. Sterling, a man whose life had been consumed by a tragic secret. The emotional climax was upon me. I looked at Sarah, at her unwavering resolve, and then at the diary. My choice was made. It wasn't about my career anymore. It was about truth, about justice, about the price of silence. We're going to tell the world, Sarah, I said, my voice firm, resolute. All of it. What happened to Evelyn, and what he did to you. The aftermath was a whirlwind. The authorities were called, their initial skepticism replaced by grim determination as they saw Sarah's condition and read Evelyn's diary. Mr. Sterling, faced with undeniable evidence and Sarah's harrowing testimony, initially maintained his carefully constructed facade of denial. He tried to appeal to my discretion, to my loyalty, reminding me of the fortune I would lose, the career I would sacrifice. But his words were hollow, powerless against the burning conviction in my heart. His attempts to buy Sarah's silence had failed, and now he had to face the consequences. The story broke like a tidal wave across the nation. Billionaire's dark secret, sister's tragic end, revealed after half a century. The headlines were everywhere. Tabloids, major news outlets, social media. Sterling Manor, once a symbol of opulence, became a symbol of hidden sorrow and decades of cover-up. The sheer scale of the deception, the depth of Mr. Sterling's possessive love for his sister, the cruel irony of his protection leading to her death, captivated the public. Sarah, though shaken, found a strength she hadn't known she possessed. She spoke clearly, articulating the terror of her confinement, the moral weight of Evelyn's diary, and her unwavering belief that the truth must always come to light. Mr. Sterling was arrested, not for murder, but for unlawful confinement and obstruction of justice. His trial was a media circus, a spectacle that laid bare the fragile line between immense wealth and profound human failing. He stood trial, a pale, defeated figure, his empire crumbling around him. He never truly admitted malice, only a misguided love and a desperate need to control. He looked at me during one of the court proceedings, his eyes devoid of anger, only a profound, bottomless grief. It was as if a lifetime of secrets had finally been lifted, leaving him hollow, but perhaps, finally, free. My own life, of course, was irrevocably altered. I lost my job at Sterling Manor. My name was dragged through the mud, alternately praised as a hero and lambasted as a traitor by various factions of the public and the business community. Many of my ambitious contacts, once eager to network, vanished. My career in luxury estate management was over, but I didn't care. The ambition that had once consumed me had been replaced by something far more substantial, a clear conscience. I had chosen integrity over power, truth over wealth. And in that choice, I found a peace I had never known. Sarah, after a period of intense therapy and recovery, eventually went to graduate school, focusing on historical preservation and social justice. We stayed in touch, forging a bond forged in shared trauma and a mutual pursuit of truth. She taught me that sometimes the greatest wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in the courage to speak up, to seek justice, and to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Mr. Sterling's fortune, now largely seized or tied up in legal battles, began to diminish. The manor itself, stripped of its mystique, became a cold, empty shell, a monument to a gilded age and a buried lie. He eventually died in prison, a lonely old man, his name forever associated with the tragic tale of Evelyn Sterling. The bank account remained, at least for a time, a symbol of immense wealth, but his heart, I knew, had been broken beyond repair long before I ever stepped foot in Sterling Manor. Tell me, I wonder, looking out at the vast, indifferent ocean that holds so many secrets, what would you have done? Would you have sacrificed everything for a truth that wasn't even your own? And what if, in the end, the real hidden billionaire wasn't Alistair Sterling, with his vast fortune and his crushing secrets, but Sarah Jensen, with her unwavering spirit and her priceless courage to expose the truth?